On an appearance on the Howard Stern show this morning, Hillary Clinton was embarrassingly overcome by a coughing fit. Not to be outdone, Joe Biden fell down when he slipped on an oiled-up G-string on the Bubba the Love Sponge show.
The Trump administration has now proposed to place tariffs on French wine, cheese, and handbags. In response, the French furiously twirled their mustaches and angrily adjusted their ties.
Despite photos of them having breakfast together last summer, President Trump says he doesn't know Prince Andrew. It's best not to take it personally when he forgets who you are, said Tiffany Trump.
True. Good advice. Brazilian President Bolsonaro has accused Leonardo DiCaprio of causing the fires in the Amazon. That's ridiculous because DiCaprio ignores anything over than age 24.
President Trump canceled a previously scheduled press conference and then left the NATO event early, reportedly after hearing Boris Johnson, Emmanuel Macron, and Justin Trudeau laughing about him with Princess Anne. Oh, come on. That was just locker room talk.
Since Kamala Harris has bowed out of the presidential race, a top aide for her is now working for the Bloomberg campaign, which is kind of like quitting Arby's to work for Blockbuster.
And finally, in yesterday's closed-door impeachment hearing prep session, Jerry Nadler told a group of Democrats that he's not going to take any shit, which is nothing new. When you consider the way that he eats, he probably never takes a shit. The Trump Report starts now!
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
You see, if you like shout over the groans, it's like they didn't happen. Welcome to the Trump Report. Yes, assembled here is a very chic New York-looking crowd dressed in all black. We're in mourning for something. Maybe it's democracy. Hi, I'm Christian Bladt, joined as often by Tamra Brown.
I am in navy blue, I'll have you know.
You know what you are.
Yeah, you actually are.
Way to poke a hole in my fun. But we'd still look like we'd be, we have with jeans.
You're not wearing black either. That's like gray.
Oh, yeah, well. Yeah. It's just as I looked in the monitor, it would look like that. That's all right. Anyway, we still look like we're very fashionable.
AfterBuzz Fashion Week.
To be fair, none more fashionable than the one and only S-Man himself, Scott Moore!
That is true.
Yeah. We often talk to Scott about the polls out there, but I believe you're polling at 79%. So approval, by the way. Approval.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, I think there were some controversial things after one of the recent debates. Anyway, and of course we have our friend in the booth, Ryan Nilsson. We appreciate
present
and accounted for
in a red and blue type shirt.
Thank you.
A little purpley.
All right, so you're going for a Spider-Man vibe, which is awesome. Now, there is a video that I referenced in the top of the show that you let me know if you can find, Ryan. But you know what they say in this business we call show, which usually people who say that aren't really in show business. So case in point, me. The idea that every mic is a hot mic. If there's a microphone anywhere near you, you don't say anything in front of it. And I think a lot of people understand that, but then it's just too hard to not make fun of President Trump. And I mean, the funny thing there, I feel like it's going to really bother President Trump when, it's like, all right, Macron, sure, but Trudeau? Oh, no. He has to feel like he's, much more of a man than he is. And, look, all the shortcomings you can say about President Trump, have you ever seen a picture of him in blackface? Just a question.
Have I seen one?
Have you seen one?
Well, did you notice how I posed it?
Yeah, right,
I didn't
exactly.
say there is. Yeah.
Right.
But, so, I think he's just like, yeah, I'm better than. And I don't know. I mean, sure, it's like he got his feelings hurt and he took the ball and went home. But it's also like, yeah, I don't want to be here anyway, probably. I think Ryan has a little of this audio, and it looks like how much fun everybody is having there.
Yep.
I believe we have captioning for it. Yeah, is that... Yeah, he takes a 40-minute press conference, and, they're all just kind of... Boris Johnson's the other guy, who is, by the way, low-rent Trump, if you look at him.
Right, exactly. Like,
so
supposed to be his friend.
It's like, wait, my lighting double? So they're basically making fun of him giving a press conference. By the way, considering things that they could have said in front of a microphone,
Absolutely.
this isn't that bad. You know, they're talking about the way that the people who work for him react to him. That's probably, look, anybody who's ever worked for a celebrity knows how that is. So anyway, I think that was enough of the fun there. But what do you think, Tamra, about one, the conversation, and the reaction, and the fact that we're talking about it now?
I think it's so mild. It's so silly that this is even. I mean, to me, it's very enjoyable to watch. But what they're saying, like you just said, they didn't say anything. Trump has said something 10 times worse in tweets. So
he has tweeted worse things to Rosie O'Donnell.
Well,
like infinitely worse.
I mean, that's a given. But I mean, he's tweeted the worst thing. I don't know. I can't think of an example of somebody who he actually likes that he said something worse to. But what they said is very mild.
Yeah.
They weren't even talking about him. They were talking about his staff. And I don't even think that I don't think it was there are no accidents. I think that not that they were aware that they were being recorded, but I feel like they just don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, and I don't know. Look, it seems like, I don't know, maybe the visit to the White House isn't the hot ticket that it could have been for some of these people a few years ago, or as maybe they're envisioning in a couple years. It seems like the president of the Ukraine is the only person who actually wants that invitation to the White House, at least the last we heard.
None of them want to eat cheeseburgers anyway, so why would they go?
Yeah. Speak for themselves, because if I got that invite to the fast food summit, I would be happy to go, and I would also I'd wear a jacket with like big pockets so that I could get a couple Whoppers for the road.
I thought you were gonna say you're gonna wear like a big jacket like he does.
Oh, like Trump does.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'll also have the very long
And a
tie.
little tie.
Yes.
Well, no, I'm going to go the long tie. So, Scott, what do you think about all of this? And if that were you, and you were the president of the United States, which one day you may be.
Maybe.
Yeah. Would you...
Since Trump can, anyone can now.
Is this the official announcement? Is this
Well, I
But
figured
not,
since...
not 2020, though. Let's be
Well,
honest.
more
I
is
mean,
joining the
that's right.
presidential
Might as well
race?
join the race.
Are you going to
There's-
start? You're going to start with Super Tuesday, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Bloomberg. Well, it
Yeah.
worked for Rudy, so why
Yeah,
not?
exactly.
Yeah.
I'll just write a check to my campaign.
Great.
$40 million.
Easy.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of it? And do you, regardless of your feelings about President Trump, do you understand the reaction of like, oh, I got to stick around for this?
Well, I think it goes back to that these leaders really do not respect him. Regardless of what you think of Trump, I don't think any of them really take him seriously or respect him. And that's, that was proven just by the small talk afterwards. And, then he took off, of course. He didn't even stick around and do a press conference. If everything was so great, he would have, like he did the day before, he did his meandering 2-hour press conference, that incoherent thing that he decided not to do. So I think it goes back to just not respecting him.
To be fair, he did hear that back at home they had started selling the Popeye's chicken sandwich again. So there was really nothing to stick
That's what he
around
came
for.
back for?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you've had it, you're kind of like, all right, I guess. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I find it. I find it to be very entertaining. I think. Go figure. The Drudge Report maybe inflated a little bit when they referred to it with the headline "The Hato Summit," but I'll always go for a bad pun. If
Right.
that's not a New York Post quality headline pun, but that's still
It was
decent one.
a high-fat, high-protein meal they served, so I call it the Keto Summit.
Oh, all right. Should I point out that that's called keto?
Yeah.
I'm already embarrassed by that. I'm
The
going to
only
show
reason I
myself
did
out.
is because I've already been on record saying that you and I are wearing black shirts today when clearly we're not. But people listening have no idea.
Right, you could be.
Yeah, maybe I have on a top hat and tails, and one of those French mustaches you referenced earlier. So another story that is making the rounds seems like, look, typically I feel as though, we talked about this beforehand. I feel like, don't bring minors into the conversation. Don't bring the president or other elected officials' kids. Hunter Biden, of course, would be a great exception, because when you're an adult.
Underage kids.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And, early on, there were comedians that tweeted things about Barron Trump. And I'm like, I don't even care what you think about Trump. It's just like, he's just a kid. That's just his dad. Just leave him alone. But the professor during the impeachment hearing that said you can name your son Barron, but that doesn't mean you can name him a Baron. I think that's all right.
He does not give him the power to do anything he wants. And I'll just give you one example that shows you the difference between him and a king, which is the Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility. So while the president can name his son Baron, he can't make him a baron.
By the way, every open mic I ever did when I was trying to be a stand-up comedian, the joke landed just like that, where there was a... How do you think that would have gone over at an open mic?
It does have that feeling that she was about to be like, mic drop. No.
You know, we haven't really talked much about this on the show,
Right.
but one of the things that I've noticed is that Amy Klobuchar, she makes a lot of jokes during the debates.
No,
and
I've mentioned that.
They never
they don't
land
land.
at all.
Right.
They always fall so flat. Because she does that thing where she moves on really quickly, and she, you know, you do that laugh of like, oh, that's no one liked that. But I don't know. To me, this doesn't seem like...
I just don't think it's a good statement to make. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think if that's the example you're using to prove your point that the president is not allowed, like we have it in our Constitution, that the president is not a monarch, like that's not a good
And
example of
furthermore,
that.
you cannot name Larry King an actual king.
exactly.
Prince was not a prince.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like as big a deal. It's like you invoke the name of the kid. It's all right. You know, it's not the example that it's always easy to go back to, which is when Rush Limbaugh had a TV show for a minute and he said, oh, you know, there's also a White House dog, and they showed a picture of Chelsea Clinton, you know?
Ooh.
That's like, yeah. And by the way, their excuse for that was, it was the wrong picture. It was like, really? So what was the right picture?
Right.
They had a cat.
Exactly.
They had a cat at that point. I think later he got a dog. But anyway, so...
Rush Limbaugh is such garbage.
Yeah.
Well, he sells those chairs that he sits in, and if I could just get a cut of that chair money, I don't want any of his radio money. I just want some of that chair money. He sells the Excellence in Broadcasting chairs. I am not sitting in one right now, but
Right.
Excellence in Answers from Scott Moore. What do you think about this? Should we even be talking about it?
No, it's
Chelsea would be so annoyed
it
right
would be.
now.
It's just it's clutching your pearls. It's much ado about nothing. It's again, like you said, it's not that she was trying to make a sassy little joke there that didn't land, as we all were just saying. But the point was, what she was getting at was the whole thing, which is true, is that you know we're not a monarchy, and it wasn't saying anything negative about the kid or bring him into it. So it was just saying his name. So it was silly, and it's just another distraction by Republicans because they have nothing else at this point to defend this actual president. It's going to be all about the hearings. It's going to be all about the way it's done. It's not going to be actually anything that they can defend his actual behavior and everything because they can't. So this is the kind of distraction they're going to try to do now.
She could have said we don't have a monarchy reference when Trump said that when he's joked that he'll be in office again and again for eternity. You know, like she could have used that as the example, but it's just a flimsy.
Yeah, but it's not a big enough thing to.
Yeah, it's somebody who
make a big deal over.
I feel like it's one of those things. I feel like she crafted part of the speech as she came up with that, thought it was a great idea, crafted that point around that because it's not even a strong like.
It's not
even a
something that
strong
people are
point.
arguing about, like, you know, appointments and things, you know. I mean, by that I mean, you know, appointing people to ambassadorships and stuff. That's not really a part of it. But, Scott, we often talk about the countdown clock for impeachment. And should we be switching that to the 60 minutes that'll like, are we getting like that
Right,
close now, like where it's actually like the regular clock has too much time left on it?
Yeah, no, I think we're like 11:59 and 30 seconds.
That's pretty close.
Because look, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion now, especially after the report came out that the House Democrats have done that they will impeach him. Now it's just going to be a matter of how are they going to move it forward and get it to the Senate and go from there.
Yeah, and I mean, The idea that 0 Republicans would vote to remove him from office is probably not fair. I don't know for sure that, he's gone on the record to say that he would vote in favor of removal, but, Mitt Romney's danced around it. I know that Pierre Delecto did say, he tweeted out that he certainly feels that Mitt Romney should remove him from office, but Mitt Romney has not said that.
Right.
But if Pierre Delecto says it, you can see that's coming. But I feel like the number's not 0. Let's put. I don't think it's 0 Republicans. I don't think it's enough to actually make it happen. But
as much as we reference the countdown clock, have you always said that it's countdown to the hearing, or it's not actual removal?
No, just to impeachment. Which,
Okay.
Right. Which could happen.
Which technically,
but then,
when the House, that's impeachment. The Senate would be removing from office, so the impeachment actually happens in the House.
right. And then if we
see.
get over to the Senate and it's like a hearing on removal from office, I think that's when it goes back to the old VCR that just blinks 12
So we're
o'clock because
pretty
you don't know what to count.
confident at this point that impeachment is happening. Then,
Yeah.
it's just he's not going to be removed from office.
Right.
Right, exactly. I think that's that.
Got it.
Yeah, he's getting the call back, but he's not going to get hired for the part. So I think it's always important that we check in.
Now I get it.
well,
Thank you for.
If I
putting
don't put it into
terms.
show
Putting the business of
terms.
show terms in there.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't
Got
know
it.
if you still do open mics, but if the next time you do, I would love to see you try and work that Barron joke in, just to see how it goes over in an actual open mic. Just see if anyone laughs.
Challenge accepted. I will.
You're gonna
find a way.
You're gonna do an open mic. All right. Well, this is great.
Find a way.
You're like, just drop the mic after that one joke. And that's
Exactly,
like,
walk
what,
away.
What just happened? We also referenced at the top of the show was the fact that Kamala Harris, is out of the race. That let's be honest, she hasn't really been in it for a while. The numbers were all going the wrong way, and I guess leaving that campaign to go on the Bloomberg campaign is like, it's like, at least he's going to be able to make payroll.
Right.
He's going to open his
You're gonna
checkbook.
get paid.
That actually happened
Yeah.
before the news broke that she was stepping down out of the race, and it was right when the news broke about like mistreatment of staffers within her campaign. That's when I saw that story.
Right. So I think that it's all, and this was one of those things that I remember there was a point yesterday morning, at least Pacific time, so I guess it was the early afternoon, where CNN just had like the little graphic, reports indicate that Kamala Harris is stepping down. But then all of a sudden the reports indicate was gone. So you could tell they were really excited. Like, oh yeah, we're saying it.
Yeah.
We're saying that it's happening. And what do you think, if you had to just guess, what's a gut reaction for you, Tamra, as to like why she didn't connect with voters?
Why she didn't connect with voters? I don't know if she didn't not connect with voters.
Just not with enough.
Yeah, not with enough. It's too many cooks in the kitchen. That's one of the reasons. Like
Our
everybody's.
friend Drexel agrees with you on that, by the way. That's what he posted about it, that he thought there
Did
were
he
too many.
say? Did he use that phrase?
Not cooks in the kitchen, but he thought that there were too many people involved in the campaign all making decisions.
The Democratic support is stretched too thin, and so that I feel like that's definitely a reason. And maybe a lot of the Democrats, especially within California, that do not like her record as a what's the word? Her record as an
Just as
attorney,
as a prosecutor,
drug prosecutor.
Yeah.
So I guess that hurts her too. I would say that's all. I'd say it's mostly the too many cooks in a kitchen. I think that it's just.
I always feel like people should support candidates that they like the impression on Saturday Night Live. Like, I thought Maya Rudolph did a really good one, so I kind of wanted to see more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really how everybody should vote. Look,
And Kamala's so great at when that video came out of Maya Rudolph, she tweeted like this little and this little girl likes the parody on SNL or something like that. She's very good at like poking fun at herself. So I think Trump tweeted today some sarcastic tweet about like sorry Kamala, will nice knowing you. That's not what he said, but it was something to that effect.
We'll miss you.
We'll miss you. And she was like, well, I'll see you in the hearing. So
Yeah. That's a good response. My favorite of his tweets to that were when Kristen Gillibrand stepped out, and he's like, "Little did they know she was the one I was actually afraid of." Yeah. And I know that it's very difficult for some people to think anything that he ever writes is funny, but
that was pretty. He did not write that. Somebody wrote that for him.
It went out under. It went out under that. But you're right. He has more writers than the Tonight Show.
That is
fine.
pretty.
Yeah.
That is pretty funny, and I know
funny.
that his brain is not capable of that type of.
He doesn't know how to be funny.
Scott, do you agree? Too many cooks in the kitchen. Is there something else specifically, or is it just too many people and it's hard to keep track?
I do agree with that, but also there wasn't a connection, because if there was, there would have been enough people to back her, and there wasn't. And when you see in her own home state that she wasn't even cracking the top 3, means she's not connecting with enough people. Pure and simple. I think she's not a great campaigner, and like you were saying, Tamara, I think the being a prosecutor, an attorney general, with some of the criminal reforms that she was involved with, were not very popular with a core base of supporters. So that was already hurting her. And I don't think she really connected, because she wasn't quite sure. Like, yeah, she's funny and she's got a kind of a fun personality, but she wasn't quite, to me, feeling authentic enough to connect to a lot of voters. So the problem was she wasn't able to get there. And if she couldn't get the voters, let's say in South Carolina, where Joe Biden's still very much in the lead, and some of those other early states where she just wasn't connecting with enough people, there really was no opportunity for her to get where she needed to be. And then, of course, like she said, having no great organization is going to affect you. But bottom line, you're not having the money. If you're not connecting with the people and you're not getting enough money, you're not going to get very far. And I think it was very smart of her to step back now, because it's very difficult, especially an ego-driven type thing of running for president, to be able to finally say, you know what, I can't do it. I've got to step back. And it was smart that she did it now, instead of going through with the first couple races and dismally showing in the low single digits. So it was smart of her to do that. I think she definitely has a future, regardless of being senator here in the state, as long as she wants it. But other places as well, maybe in a future Democratic administration. And
Joe Biden said that he'd consider her to be his running mate, and then also said, and I bet she can still be president herself one day, which is like, it's all right, kid. Don't give up. Uncle Joe's going to help, and you still got a shot at this thing.
I see her being appointed attorney general.
That's what I was going to say. She could very easily be attorney general.
By President
Warren.
Okay. I just was wondering which one you felt was going to do that. By the way, if Pete Buttigieg were to become president, could we call him President Mayor Pete? Because that would still be easier than actually saying his name. Yeah. Also, we had so many big news stories referenced in the top of the show, because that's where the jokes are. Hillary Clinton did indeed have an interview on the Howard Stern show this morning, and I have not heard it yet. I just want to say that I've been talking for a long time about how I'm still not convinced that Hillary doesn't want to be the nominee and might not still run.
Right.
And going on the Howard Stern show is not necessarily something that says, oh, I definitely don't want to run.
Christian, I will bet you money.
Oh, money, yes, money. How much?
She is not entering this race.
I'm not saying she's going to win. I'm just saying
I'm saying she's not entering the race.
What if Joe Biden falls down a flight of stairs and somebody named Bill mysteriously runs away?
Are you referring to the plot of Showgirls? Hillary Clinton.
Is that the plot of
Showgirls? Hillary Clinton is going to accidentally push somebody down a flight of stairs to enter the race and be appointed.
It's a variation on the Tanya Harding story, really. I mean, that's
true.
It's a tale as old as time.
It is.
I want to make that Showgirls Hillary Clinton running for president movie. All right, so you think that there's no chance. I still think there's time.
I agree with you, Christian. I think because she wants it so badly and she feels that she can go back in and get her revenge and get the presidency, which is something she's wanted since she was a little kid, she will go and do it. So I wouldn't put it past her to
Ever
jump
since she
in.
was a young girl named after Sir Edmund Hillary, who did not actually climb, what was it, whatever mountain he climbed, until like 4 years after she was born. Ever since then,
Yes.
that's what she's really
Well, that's
wanted
when she
at.
wanted to when she was 4.
And then
I think we should make a wager.
I'm interested in a wager. That's fine with me. I'll take that Barron Trump joke out on an open mic if I lose. I'll do 8 of my shittiest jokes from this show on an open mic. I don't care.
I'll take the Baron one out if I win. You're
just,
that one out to
you're
the
just
open mic.
kicking the tires for fun.
I'm going to think of
All right,
what a good wager
Here
will
it
be
is.
in by next week.
People in the chat, let us know what you think is a
what
good
would be a
wager.
good wager
Tweet us at
between-
Trump Report ABTV if you have any good ideas for what the wager should be as to whether or not Hillary Clinton
Is entering.
enters the
Just
race.
entering the
she doesn't
race.
have to become the nominee. She doesn't have to get any super delegates, which she would buy plenty of them, so she would get some.
Tamra says she is not entering the race. Christian says she is.
I will back up Christian on that too.
Also,
I think she very easily could.
It being an interview with Howard Stern, of course, the topic of lesbianism came up, and that's actually not a joke. It did come up, and she did dismiss those rumors that there have been about her, and says, "I actually like men." I think that what she forgot to say is just not the one she's married to. But, you know, that's fine. It was a joke I meant to put in the beginning of the show, and then I saw it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Anyway.
I think that joke is just too real.
It cuts a little too deep there. Yeah.
Hey, the first cut is the deepest. Anyway, all right, I want to know what other people think. And Chelsea hasn't been here in a couple weeks. I'm going to have to ask her. Does she think that Hillary's getting in? Because what I know she'll say is, "Oh my God, I hope not." What if she did get in? How would you be excited, Tamra? Do you feel like that would energize despite the late arrival of Mike Bloomberg? Which obviously people are.
Or Deval Patrick. Let's not forget him too.
Oh, I did forget about Deval Patrick.
Yes, come on. That was
I
exciting.
want to amend something though.
Okay.
I think I have said this before.
Okay.
I could see Biden or somebody picking her up as a running mate.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's not what the bet is. That's
Yeah.
fine. If that
That's not what
happens,
the bet is.
I will not consider myself right if she ends up being somebody's VP candidate.
Okay.
Which, by the way, if you really want to be worried about getting pushed down a flight of stairs, have Hillary Clinton as your
Right.
VP.
Exactly.
I know. It will be the plot of House of Cards.
Showgirls 2.
Exactly.
Which, Showgirls 2, House of Cards is
It's
really,
one
what's the
and the
difference?
same.
I
A
don't
lot
know.
of people say.
I didn't.
Godfather 2 and Godfather 3.
Every time I think I get out there, get it back. Anyway, so those are some of the big stories out there. I sometimes like some of the smaller stories that you see. One of which referenced that this happens every year around the holiday time. There's usually some beloved, cherished classic that gets looked at through a new jeweler's loop of 2020. And people have been speaking out against the bullying in Rudolph the Red Nosed Reindeer, the Rankin Bass special, which, again, Chelsea would be like, what? But she's not here, so we'll talk about it anyway. The idea of the bullying, and I have no problem with the bullying in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I think that it helped him toughen up. My problem has always been that Santa is such an asshole. In that.
Right.
It's like, you're just like, oh, too bad. He had such good form. It's like, well, don't be a dick. I don't know, but so I'm not specifically
Tough love
asking what
Santa.
everybody thinks about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but it's like, do we need to take a longer look at the Charlie Brown Christmas special it's the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving special where Franklin sat on the other side of the table from the other kids, which was legitimately like a thing that I remember reading about last year, which I appreciated not seeing again this year because I guess people felt like they'd gotten it out.
I heard that a lot of when Franklin was first introduced into the comic book. I don't know if I've finished. I feel like I'm veering us way off topic. But Franklin
if we're
was
gonna talk about
introduced
Franklin
into
on Peanuts, that's
into the
gonna be
comic
great.
book in like 1968.
Yeah.
I believe that they said that there was a boycott. Like a lot of places were like boycotting the comic strip when he was introduced. Like that's where the country was at that time.
To get really bogged down, and that aired in 1972. And I think if you had Franklin sitting at the same side of the table as some kids, you'd have some affiliates like, nope, we're not going to air that. I mean, when you look at things that networks don't air like today versus 1972. But anyway, so I don't know. I mean, I can understand. Look, there's plenty of content that doesn't hold up. You know, Disney Plus went through when they were launching and they listed every movie from every year that was going to be available. And then you notice they skipped a year because that's the year that Song of the South came out. So they had every other year, and that's fine. If Disney takes a long hard look and goes, well, we'll make a ride about Song of the South, Splash Mountain, but we're not going to put the movie out there. No, we'll sell it in other countries.
Now, did they keep the version of Aladdin when the cloud spells out sex? I wonder if they.
I'm going to bet they
doctored
didn't
that.
actually, because when they had to change lyrics to the something about like getting your hand chopped off or something. So, you know, there's been a lot of there's not like a new thing, you know, going back in and you know trying to change things. You know, Speaking of Disney, the idea that Greedo shot first, we could do a whole show on that, couldn't we, Ryan? I think
Yes,
Ryan,
sir.
yeah. All right. McClunky to you too, sir. But what do you think about sort of, and it's not specifically about Red Nosed Reindeer. Should we be looking at these things like this or just be like, oh, it's like you're just watching for the songs anyway. Do you really have to worry about Rudolph getting bullied?
Is this a conversation about sensitivity? Like, are people being too sensitive? Is it that conversation?
I mean, yeah, it's just like, do we need to take the time for that? You know,
no, because as a comedian, I'm asked about is PC culture too far, and that's a conversation I'm involved in a lot. And my position is that people are no more sensitive now than they always were. The difference is that since marginalized people have a voice now, kind of, we're hearing sides to things that we would normally never hear. And because of that, there are a fraction of people who are like, well, I want to say that I'm upset by something too. And far too much attention goes to that fraction, that small fraction of people just trying to join the conversation. I do believe that everybody has their boiling point. Like anybody who approaches me and says like, oh, people are too sensitive now, I always say to them, I guarantee that I could find the thing that offends you.
Right.
You know, don't act like you're, you know, tough skin, everything just bounces off me, because nobody that is nobody. Nobody is in that instance. So anyway, yes, I do not like things like this getting attention, because I feel like that the largest problem with PC culture is that there is some loud person makes a stink about something in some company in small town in Wisconsin, and papers focus on that as an example of PC culture going too far. And it's like,
right. Well, to your point that
happening.
marginalized people have a bigger voice, it's also just people who like to stir things up also have like a bigger platform, and they're like, oh yeah, this
because
is good.
people are willing to listen now. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there is a fraction of people who are wanting to join the conversation when they shouldn't, and too much attention goes to that. That's what I'm saying.
What do you think, Scott? Did you feel triggered watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at any point in your life?
And it was just a bunch of reindeer games.
To be fair,
Right. Yeah, to be fair.
to
Which,
be
by
fair,
the way, I was more
his
triggered by
grandma
the...
was run over by a reindeer.
Right, I was just going to say it. It was all fun and reindeer games until then. But
What could be more triggering than the Ben Affleck film Reindeer Games, by the way? But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, but I will say I do 100% agree with Tamra, is that the fact is that people do have a platform now, and then people do use it in a way to get attention. And case in point, it goes back to the Barron thing today. You know, it's like now they're making a whole big issue about something that isn't. And I think it's always been there to some degree, and there is always a point where we are going to absolutely be offended in each level. And to me, it's like, okay, well then don't watch it. You can change the channel, you can do something else. When it gets to the point where it's personally offending you, I think there's a certain line that things now, there are certain things that we wouldn't show just because it would be a little bit too extreme. But things like Rudolph, sure, I can get that people would want to revisit certain things, but I think we get to a point where it just gets too extreme, and if you really feel uncomfortable about it, you just don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
You have 1,000 other channels and streaming services and other things to watch more modern holiday classics.
Because it's not like this is the only children's show that depicts bullying. I mean, a Christmas Story, like you could almost, I'd say the majority of them show some form of bullying. So why is this one singled out?
Or you could say gun violence, because Christmas Story wants to get the BB gun, and you could say, you know, there's a certain point where it does get a little bit too far if you start doing that for every little thing, because you could do that with everything even today. You could find things that are going to be offensive, and so yeah, you do have to take some things with a grain of salt, but like Cameron says, I do agree with that. They've always been around, but now there's platforms that people can do from anywhere.
Yeah, and I'd be
and
more
get the message
concerned
out.
about my kids seeing Frosty the Snowman and thinking it's okay to just, hop in a train car to the North Pole, like everything's going to be all right, and you're going to get back in time for dinner. That's something.
right.
Christian wants to make sure he teaches his children time management skills.
Believe me, at my house, that would go a long way. And just to circle back, because I didn't see this earlier, so Melania Trump specifically responded to this. She said, "A minor deserves privacy. You should be ashamed," which I think anytime that a member of the Trump family says someone should be ashamed, then everybody's like follow-up tweets write themselves.
Yeah.
At that point, but let's keep that joke alive and make sure that we keep talking about it. Back to NATO, by the way. President Trump said that he got deep respect and got along great with NATO leaders, but he also feels like maybe we don't need to be in NATO anymore. That seems like a very Trump approach, don't you think, Scott? That no, we shouldn't be part of NATO. Do we really want to be part of the United Nations? Why don't we charge the United Nations rent? Which I'm okay with that, by the way. So you think about that piece of real estate in Manhattan that the United Nations just gets to have. But what do you think about the idea of like, oh, let's pull out of some of these any of these big the G20, any of these things, the idea that, we don't need to be a part of it. That seems to be, Trump has these positions for a reason. Do you think that there's a vocal enough percentage of Americans that would want something like that it would actually happen?
Well, I think about his extreme base of the 20% of the Republican Party does support isolationism. That's basically what America First means, is isolationism. And but I take his point about, it went so well and successful, is basically whatever he says, it's actually the opposite, which goes back to the leaders not respecting him and making fun of him, and nothing major was accomplished. But these organizations like NATO have been around for 70 years now in the United Nations, and they're there for a reason after World War II. And we saw how the U.S. was leading up to World War II, and that was the last time we were sort of in an isolation. Well, in the 20s as well, we were in that very much isolationism setup, and it didn't serve us well at the end of the day. So we go into isolationism at our own peril, because especially today, because now you allow other countries like China, who is actively involved with building projects in South America and Africa and having influence in the Pacific. And if we back up too much, that we do take the opportunity of being America first, but not first in the world anymore. And so we do that at our own peril. So, he may suggest tearing up all these agreements and everything, but it doesn't serve America well in the long run when we're isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, especially that we're more global than we've ever been. So that would be a detriment to the country as a whole, doing that in the long run.
Something far less significant than that, but I wanted to get your thoughts before we ran out of time, was in Oklahoma, a Starbucks manager, who was 21 years old, was fired after giving a police officer with a coffee cup that had the words pig written on them. She's considering suing the company for wrongful termination. I mean, I think that you take out of the fact that it's police officers, that's like if somebody on my cup wrote like, "Hey Tubby," I'd be like, well, no, I think I'm mad about that. It's like I don't think you should be able to write something disparaging about a customer and expect to keep your job. What do you think, Tamra?
Yeah, that's tricky. I think that's it's. I feel like all I'm doing today is referencing movies. But in Wayne's World, when the cop is laughing about them calling him pig and asking him if he smells bacon, like I feel like we were in a time where this, 20 years ago, this would not have been a big deal. But because there is, Blue Lives Matter, there's so much attention on. I support the police. I am anti-police right now. Now is not the time to make that sort of joke and expect that it's not going to be a big deal. So, yeah, that probably shouldn't have done it.
Right. Well, do you think that she was taking a strong political stance here? That she wants to take this to the Supreme Court?
I haven't heard what it's even said, like what her reasoning was. She trying to be funny? Is she a person that like has been targeted by police in the past? So she really does have like a hatred of the police force. Like I'm not really sure what the reasoning behind it was, but I think that is reason enough to be terminated from your job. It's likely, like you were saying, like it's you. She said that to any customer that would not
right.
Be
even
okay.
if you're not a police officer and it says pig, I'd be like, excuse me,
it would not be okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's company property, and you're whatever you can do that in your off time. I mean, there is a line where I could say if you're posting things on social media and you've heard about people getting fired because of that, because they're not representing the company. But that's a little bit more if they're not using the company social media handles and they're just writing personally on their off time, then that's a trickier, murkier thing. But when you're using company property on work and you're doing things like that, that does, I think, cross the line, too, of being inappropriate because you have other ways of expressing your displeasure with the police or the president or whatever on your off time as opposed to doing it during company time. And like you said, that would be offensive to somebody, calling me a certain word or calling somebody a certain word and as just a regular, everyday citizen. And you call me a pig, I could be like, oh, wow.
I wonder if he drank the coffee.
I would hope not. Like,
it's not.
If I got a cup that said mouthy customer, I'd be like, yeah, all right. They got me on that one. I'm not gonna ask for the manager. They're all right. But if there's anything that's like a personal attack. And finally, I don't know if there's enough time for Ryan for you to find this, but there's a new video out there of two immigrants very easily scaling this new section of Trump's wall, the impenetrable section of the wall, with a rope ladder that they just flung over. It's very like cartoon. It's like a cartoon prison escape. It's the closest thing to Bugs Bunny drawing the hole that's a tunnel and then
right, exactly. That's what I was just thinking.
And then the border agents run into the wall.
Now, is this the section of the wall that was built out of Don Jr.'s books?
Hey, it was a bestseller. It was the #1 bestseller in the New York Times.
Purchased by the GOP for this specific purpose.
Exactly.
Look, the book's
all the time.
called Triggered, Tamra, so I don't want it to be about you. So now, look, after they do this, the Border Patrol does catch them, and then I'm sure they sent Mexico the bill for having to return them, the rope ladder. And so for those of you watching on YouTube, you can actually see it right now. And it doesn't seem like it's all you can see right through it, and obviously that doesn't mean you can get through it. But it doesn't. I don't see any real deterrence. Like I don't know if there's a humanitarian issue not putting like barbed wire at the top, but there must be something you can do to like. So that birds don't land on something. You can put something on this wall. But is this good PR for President Trump? Do you think that this is helping him when he will spend 2020 saying that he built that wall, that he made America great again?
His supporters this means absolutely nothing to them. It's not like his supporters are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe the wall's not a good idea. That's not happening. You
know what that means they needed? A bigger wall. And one that was rope ladder proof in some way. So I think that there's probably somewhere. Imagine being the architect that's like, I got one for you. It's a government contract. You got to take the wall, make it twice as big, and you got to figure out a way that you can't get a rope ladder over it. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm on that. Anyway, I wanted to end on that one because, why not? Also because we're out of time. But thanks to everyone who joined us live today, and thanks to Tamra Brown. Where do people find you?
Hi there. @HeyTamra_.
And Scott Moore, where do people find you?
You can find me calling Mitch McConnell a hypocrite on Twitter @SMan80. That's SMan80.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram @ChristianDMZ. And don't forget to follow the show at Trump Report ABTV. And you can find me Thursdays over on the Popcorn Talk Network at 1 p.m. Pacific for Marvel movie news, and Fridays here on AfterBuzz TV at noon with our friend Ryan in the booth for the Mandalorian After Show. Speaking of Disney Plus and Star Wars, you'll see us both over there. That's all the time we have for now, but next week we'll be back at our regular time, Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and then the week after not. But just worry about next week right now. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV.
Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.